Thank you. If you'll join me for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Tappan,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kojin,
Here.
Councilor Davis. She just stepped out for a minute. Councilor Yank,
Present.
Councilor Bobby. Here. Councilor Cormier,
Here.
Councilor Warner.
Here.
Thank you. Priority list. Any discussion in the city's council strategic priorities? Seeing none. Any council priorities pertaining to individual priorities? We have no minutes to approve, so we're going to move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a portion of the meetings must be to expedite routine matters. It must be passed in one undebatable motion, passed unanimously. Before we make a motion, I'm going to pull one thing out of there, the information, the proclamation for the Municipal Clerks Week.
Move
Pull
to
that
approve
out.
the consent agenda.
What's that?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
The remainder of the consent agenda.
The remainder of the consent agenda.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. So this moves to the front of new business. We have no public hearings. At this time, we open up the floor to hear from the citizens. Citizens may address the council on items not on the agenda. But remember, the council cannot discuss or take legal action on any matters. If anyone would like to address the council? Please state your name and address for the record.
P.O. Box or physical address? Either one, does it matter? My name is Jody Garduno. I live at 31 Cameron. My P.O. Box is 4483. I've lived in Page, it's going to be 15 years in June, and I'm coming to speak on behalf of the limited number of hours that our library is open and the cutting of our staff and the hours and the programs at the library. I was born and raised in Chicago, and I lived in Phoenix and in the environs of Arizona for 23 years before I lived here. So I've now lived here 39 years in the state of Arizona. And growing up, one of the places I would always go to is the library. So when I moved here, I kind of went into culture shock in that 2004 Page wasn't as many people, many things to do. One of the first places I went to was the library. The library was then and continues to be, in my opinion, one of the best assets that we have here. I am also a teacher. I see kids that don't have parents that are home when they get home. One of the places that they go to is the library. The programs that they have at the library for the children are extensive and help support and foster not only a love of reading, but a love for the arts and science and other type of things. Also, in the 15 years I've lived here, took place in the summer adult reading program, which I understand is one of the programs getting cut. And not only do children need to read, but we need to have that support, that community involvement, that talking with each other. I've heard a lot of rumors around town, and I try not to believe in rumors, but I've also heard some good information that our town is now turning into, let's see what's going to get us the most money. I know I am not a tourist. I know I am not one of the people that's going to come and maybe spend the night at a hotel, but I am a person that has lived here year-round. I pay my taxes. I support the community. I volunteer at programs through the Park Service, through the city, through my church, and I want to be heard as a citizen so that the programs that we have for us that live here year-round don't have to suffer because we're worried about spending money to attract tourists, because that's the word around town, and it hurts my heart. I understand that that's an important thing. I also know that not only are there books, but there's online, and that access to the internet is also something that happens at the library, can also be a support for tourists, and also having the movies that are in the park. So I just wanted to speak on behalf of what I feel are other residents of Page. I don't want to see something that is so important to us have to be looked over because we're worried about budget concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
Hello, my name is Carolyn James, P.O. Box 2538. I've already spoken to you once about the library, but I kind of put some thoughts together, and I was also here for the budget that you presented last week, and I have some comments about that as well. My opinion from what I heard last week was that it's very important to City Council that we start to generate some funds. And the community center is one of those areas where we think we can tap into. So my understanding is that there were 2 proms that were celebrations that were booked at the community center, and they were both canceled. And the reason given was that we didn't want to pay, we the city didn't want to pay the employee to be there while these celebrations went on. And that doesn't make any sense to me at all. Why would we cancel when there's somebody who wants to use that building? You made it very clear you want that building used. And unfortunately, 2 parties had to be canceled, and they had to find different arrangements. And to me, that's also pretty unprofessional. I know we need to focus on the 4.3 million visitors. We've got to get a way to tap into that and make money off of that. I know that most of the money is going to the National Park Service, and it's also going to private businesses. And the city is kind of left in the middle going, how do we get part of this? And I think Horseshoe Bend is the perfect solution for this. With 4.3 million people coming and the majority of them going to Horseshoe Bend, that is a cash cow. That is wonderful. When I was here last week, I heard somebody say, so how'd we do today? And somebody else said 20,000. I don't know what that 20,000 means. It could mean people, it could be cars, it could be money. It doesn't matter. That's a big number for one day. So congratulations on coming up with that idea. And with that in mind, I think that library can now stay open full hours, go back to reinstating hours, reinstating personnel, and reinstating programs. I know that the city council and mayor, you've been very cognizant of taking care of the little kids and making sure that the programs are still open for them. There have been cuts to that. But those teens are also very important, and that teen program has been cut. And man, those kids, those are the at-risk kids. Those are the ones who are out on the street. Those are the ones who can go to the library instead of being on the street, and that's all they have is that library. So if your hope is to reinstate that community center and get that community center going up, it's got to be now. It can't be, well, we're planning on it. You know, I listened to the budget proposal, and I heard things like, well, we've got programs that are in the works, but I heard not one example of something that's going to be done. And that concerns me, because that makes me feel like you're being told that it's going to happen, but if you don't have a timeline and if you don't have examples, you don't have anything. You just have words. So I implore you to please think very carefully about that. And I think that's about it. I do want to speak on behalf of the librarians. Last Tuesday, I know that they had to close the library down for the whole day so that the city manager could meet with them. There were kids that were really worried about what's going to happen after school. The librarians asked, can we do this on Friday? Because Friday, there's no school. And can we do this when there's no school so the kids, won't have to worry about going somewhere after school? And they were told, no, we're doing it on Tuesday. So we're not putting kids first here. We're putting, I don't know what we're putting, ulterior motives. I'm not really sure what's going on. And I've looked a little bit into it, and I know that there's the National Labor Relations Act, which says that employers can basically not allow, they cannot stop employees from gathering and speaking. They cannot stop them from speaking in public. And of course, there are exceptions. So one of the exceptions is government, all government, federal, state, local government. There is no National Relations Act. However, it doesn't build relationships with people when you tell them you can say this and you can't say that. If somebody asks you what's going on, this is your line that you are to tell them. And I don't really appreciate that, and I don't think it's a very nice way to treat people who work very hard for our community at the library. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Okay. Moving on to reports. 10.2, City Manager's Report for our city.
Yes, Mayor, Council, just a reminder, this weekend, we are receiving the baton from Pay to Tax Trash to For Our City initiative. We will be gathering at 7 o'clock at the townhouse to get our marching orders and directions where we're headed. But it's hopefully will be a happy and exciting day for the community and a cleanup of a beautification project downtown. Thank you.
So this should be a spring cleaning for the tourists, but they're already here. So. Boards and commissions, any discussion, any board reports?
I'll just say the Economic Development Advisory Board met last night. Not a lot to report. It's a very, very young board, still setting priorities, and they talked about some affordable housing programs, some things we could do with tourism, and then quality of life was a big discussion of what we could do for the citizens of Page. Some things to do for the citizens of Page that would improve quality of life. So there's a couple low-hanging fruit items that they're working on, which are exciting, and I think one of them will present to us tonight. But still a very young board in developing their list of action plans.
The Substance Abuse Task Force is having issues finding a time where everybody can attend, so we haven't been able to meet this month yet.
The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board met last night during the public scoping session for a new dog park here in Page. Some very good ideas and very good conversation was had, and we are still compiling all the information. We are also putting together a survey that will be hopefully put out online for citizens to voice their opinions as well for a new dog park here in town.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Kojin was unable to attend the PUE meeting. I attended. They went over their budget, and we'll be presenting that at a joint meeting on the 22nd of May. One of the highlights, I think, of their finance department is that they had the write-offs for 2018, 2019. They had one bad debt write-off of $12.78, and then 3 write-offs for deceased customers just under $900 total.
Thank you. We have no unfinished business. We're moving on to new business. So the first item from the consent agenda is the proclamation. So I'm going to read through this proclamation. This is Municipal Clerks Week is May 5th through May 11th, 2019. Our next meeting is in the middle of that, so we're doing this today. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of the local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, local government body, and agencies of the government at other levels, and whereas the municipal clerk have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, province, county, international professional organizations. Whereas it is the most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerks. Now therefore, I, Levi Tappan, Mayor of the City of Page, do recognize the week of May 5th through May 11th as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our municipal clerks, Kim Larson, and to all municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the community they represent. Dated this 24th day, April 2019. Just would like to give Kim a round of applause for all that she does for council.
Taking both the week off, right?
She has asked for, she has for.
Here, you have an invitation.
So I'm going to make a motion to approve this proclamation.
I move we approve the proclamation.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. New business, discussion of possible action pertaining to Horseshoe Bend operation fees. Mike?
Mayor, Council, I'll defer this to Councilmember Warner. He brought this forward, and I feel he's got the details of where he would like to go with this as a result of the influx of drop-offs out in front of the Horseshoe Bend and people walking in. And we've seen quite a bit of this in the past couple of weeks. Councilmember.
Thanks, Mike. One of the things that I think would be a tool in our toolbox is to have Category 4 walk-ins. Right now, staff doesn't have any way to handle them. They're not a motorcycle. They're not they're just walking in. So in order to enable us to pursue perhaps a pre-sale program or perhaps a way to minimize the walk-in traffic and confront those people and with legitimate reason, I feel we need to move forward with the adoption of a category for an individual day pass to Horseshoe Bend. And my thought would be that it's a $5 pass, which is the amount we have dedicated to motorcycles.
Initially, I thought everybody was okay with people walking in.
You keep bringing that up, but if you remember, we made a joke of that. There was no serious conversation about bus loads of people being dropped off on Highway 89 at the entry point to Horseshoe Bend. There was never a discussion to that latitude. There was discussion, however, well, what if someone walks in from town? And we made a joke about that. We laughed and we said, well, if they've got enough stamina to hike 3 miles, let's let them go the other half and forego that.
Well, when I asked about it, I wondered why we wouldn't charge walk-ins, because people could go and just drop them off. Or they could park across the street on one of our dirt roads and then they could just walk in.
That's a violation, number one, to park off the street. And no one ever in 5 years anticipated that a bus would pull up to the entry drive at Horseshoe Bend and unload 20, 30 people. Now, if you had the insight to that, I wish you'd have stepped up and been a little more convincing, because this whole council reviewed that whole program more than once. So to fix it, we should adopt an individual pass fee, which will give staff the latitude to impose a fee for those people who are walking in. And then maybe pursue a pre-sale program that will alleviate some of the congestion in the parking lot.
I didn't pursue it because after I did ask about it, it was just turned into a joke. So I thought that everybody was just fine with people walking in.
Well, if you're fine with
That was if
20,
the
30 people
individual wanted to
walking
walk in, and now the commercial people are taking advantage of us by unloading their people outside and walking them in. That's not good business.
My question is, are they unloading their people to avoid the long queue?
Lynn?
Mayor, council, I can tell you that they are doing it to avoid the fee. And if we had, I fully support Councilman Warner's request to have a walk-in fee, because we have a lot of shuttle companies already that are in town. We have the taxi, we have the buggy taxi, we have Ubers. And they were upset initially, and when I said, well, when you come through, when you pick up these people, you need to let them know that it's going to be $10 for their car to get in here, and that we'll take you there, but there's going to be an additional fee to get in. And I said, you got 4 passengers, it's $2.50 each to divide them, up amongst them. But we have a lot of individuals in town that feel like because that's their business, that they should be able to profit and charge those people and just drop them off for free and make money shuttling people for free with this millions of dollars investment of a parking lot that we now have. So I'm all for it because I watch those people dodge cars every day trying to save $5 or $10. And I don't think it's worth that. I would much rather them know that there's a place where they can come up and drop off people or what have you versus just dumping them. We also have families where the parents don't want to go, but they have 4 or 5 kids, teenagers, what have you. And again, they're just dumping them off at the highway and mom and dad just looping around. So I look at it more as a, what do you say, guys? I look at it more as a public safety issue because they should not be. It's 65 miles an hour, guys. It's a fast street right there. And these cars are going out and in and out, dodging it. We even see them parking across the street, and then these people are walking across. So it would be nice, because I have had shuttle people ask me, can we drop them off and they just pay on their own when they get here versus me having to pay it and then collect from them. So that would be a problem to that issue too. So
one of the big solutions, I believe, is what we talked about earlier, the shuttle concept, where people who are staying in a hotel can buy a pass to Horseshoe Bend and avoid driving out there, avoid the hassle of parking. It also accommodates people who fly in and want to see Horseshoe Bend while they're here. And if we accommodate a shuttle service, you have to have the ability to individually charge those passengers, because that shuttle bus isn't going to pay the commercial rate. It's likely going to be less if they did, because it's $130 versus 30 people. That's $150. But still, to facilitate their reservation system and their ticketing system, they have to have the ability to offer a day pass to their passengers. They have to have that. Otherwise, it won't work. The program won't work.
How are we going to funnel them through the fee station?
That was my question, is logistically, if we had a walk-in fee?
yeah, that's the question. In hindsight, it would have been perfect to have that fourth, like a little turnaround area where people could drop off and then they would kind of go through a turnstile and pay somehow. But that wasn't in the plans. So it's just something going forward, maybe even looking at, again, we're talking about phase 3. So it might be something that we just have to wait to implement, but I think it would be an excellent idea. These same shuttle companies, they'll say, well, we shuttle them for a fee out to Antelope Canyon. We're not going to pay their Antelope Canyon fee. We're just taking them there. So they're saying the same thing. We just want to take them to the dam and let them take the dam tour and pay that fee when they get there. Same thing. We want to be able to take them to Horseshoe Bend and let them incur the cost, because that's not us. We're just shuttle drivers. We're not tour people. So there is a need for it. I mean, just in the 2 weeks we've been there, we see it. So.
And I'm not opposed for we need to get it advertised and.
I'll move we initiate the $5 fee so we can start implementing and start using it at the motels and stuff, so.
Okay, so it has to be published for 90 days, correct?
I'll second that so we
Okay.
can talk about it.
Oh, sorry,
She's got a
sorry.
motion on the
I
floor, so I'll
didn't
second
hear
the
the
motion so
motion.
that you can.
So it has to be published for 90 days. And then it's implemented, correct?
Well, yeah, then you can implement it. You would have to adopt a resolution to implement that fee after the
Okay.
publication periods and notice periods have run.
I still see having issues with this. I mean, we're already concerned about the buses being in the parking lot and people just bum rushing out of the buses. I know that's not the technical term, but I mean, you're talking about pedestrians coming up. We're still going to have the same issue. So to me, it sounds like a logistical issue that we as a city need to work on, because it was actually brought up last year in conversations in this chamber about what's going to happen when this fee goes public.
That was
The
brought up
tour
about
buses are-
individuals, not bus loads.
Right,
And
but
we
it
need to
was,
implement it in order to, so we can get it out and start going it through the motels and stuff. If we don't
So-
implement it now, it'll be next year before we can implement anything.
This isn't.
We can always do away with it.
This isn't the solution to the overall problem. It's a piece of the solution. It's a part of the solution. Without it, you can't grasp how to deal with, okay, where do they go? Who's going to collect it? Do we set up another walk-in booth? I mean, all of those issues need to be talked about. But you can't do any of that. Right now, she's sitting there looking at an Uber driver or a cab driver saying, give me $10, and they're saying, well, so I just look at it that, we need to do our part to help them come up with a solution. That's all the way I see this, and this is our part. This is what we do. They are the ones, and I have to put this plug that I think that the community services director has a really full plate, and for her to take time, dealing with her, to come up with what would a fee system look like? How would we pay? How would we charge? What's the accounts receivable? That's beyond her scope. That's the manager and other staff to come up with solutions and then say, hey, let's roll this out over time. But we can't just throw everything there and say, oh yeah, well, come up with an idea. So I throw that out too.
Mayor, Council, we are going through some growing pains, obviously, with a business and operations. And this is a result of those unintended consequences sometimes. And so we're learning a little bit as we're moving forward too. As Councilmember Warner alluded to earlier, is that, and Vice Mayor, is that there was an anticipation that people were going to be dropping off in large amounts in tour buses to avoid a fee. That is happening. We witnessed that. We've been out there. We've seen it. And that's starting. This is an education process, and we've got to start putting some things forward to help this process. And this is one of the suggestions.
So just as a side note, if we are going to start charging people the $5 for a walk-in fee, would it be something that we could do where we could add in like
hey, let's give locals 50% off, and then during that 90-day process of putting it through the newspaper and all of that, come up with like what we consider to be locals and have that in there as well.
That could be a consideration with the council as well. Again, this is the will of the council on anything they want to move forward, but we need a process in place so that it can get out to the tour operators, it can get out to the Ubers of the world, the taxi drivers of the world, because all we need is just one incident out there on that Highway 89, just one time, and then we're going to be backstepping a little bit.
So here, oh, go ahead, Josh. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no.
You keep trying to talk and we keep going.
Well, I think, you know, I think what you would need to do in order to not further exacerbate the problem that we have out there with, if we give them a means to walk in, then we've got to have a way to check their passes. We've got to have a place for them to go, to drop off, and those kinds of things. What you might want to consider doing is implementing a fee for a per person basis instead of a shuttle or a car basis, and at the same time pass an ordinance that requires people that they can't drop off on city property out there, that they have to drive through the gate. Because I think that's the only way, if you encourage them to do it, they're going to go and they're going to pull the U-turn there, they're going to stop, they're going to let people off, or they're going to stop outside. So that is one way, I think, to accomplish the enforcement mechanism. We'll have to figure out a way in the booth for them to deal with that when you've got 30 people on a bus. Oh, I've got my ticket here. You know, we've got to figure out a way to deal with that. But, you know, an ordinance we can do, it's 60 days publication, and then we pass, and then we have a public meeting, and then it takes 30 days to implement. So it's a 90-day process, but we actually only have to publish for 60 days. So if you started that next
And we can
month, then, you know, you're looking at August would be the
pass
soonest.
this motion, then we can task the Weddle and them to include that in scope of the work there.
We could look at a drop-off area.
I agree, Josh. No one is advocating that the drop-off and walk through and now we're going to, have your parking lot attendant go up and gather them up. No, the solution is that's a violation. You can't do that. You have to literally go to the fee booth and enter. Now, you're right. How do we deal with a busload of 20 people that have a day pass? But we can work that through.
We'll have to figure it
But
out.
the bigger thing is we have to stop by law of some type that this is an illegal activity. You can't do it. It's
If I-
dangerous.
We
If
can
I
pass
may
an
add
ordinance.
one more thing, we've had this discussion, and until you have something in place, they can't enforce it. So right now, I also have people who come up to the fee booth and say, oh, I'm sorry, we decided we don't want to stay. And they go around and we radio, we have a white sedan Toyota exiting, and they drop someone off and they take off. So if they had come up and we had said, well, we have a $5 fee and we're going to drop them off, it might stop that as well. Now, they can still, if we get the plates or if we see them, we still can ticket them for, you know, theft of services. But until something's in place, you guys can't enforce it, correct? So once it's in place, now maybe we could also have, you know, the backup that we might need as well.
Well, this is the beginning, so you can make the thing, and in the meantime, we can do the minutia on how we're gonna handle it, so.
Yeah, it's a
Call
start.
for the question and go somewhere else.
Did you have a comment, Russell?
I'm Russell Madsen with, I'm your local taxi service. There is a problem with the fee situation. I do not mind going to the fee station, pay the fee for a group of people I have in the car. If I go back to pick them up, there's a problem. Because my drivers will go there 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day. And to keep track of all these receipts with 2 drivers, it's not feasible. If I have a driver that gets a call and they want us to pick them up at Horseshoe, my driver has no receipt. So they want him to pay a fee to get in to pick those people up. You know, I thought about parking on the highway, but that's not feasible either. I went through this process 2-3 years ago with the Park Service. Their situation is perfect. I'm a transporter of people. I pick up, I receive. FedEx pickups, receives. FedEx do not pay a fee to go through the fee station. And they're not staying, enjoying the facility. I would be like to be treated like the FedEx or UPS man.
Comment, if I could. I think the assumption is that if you're picking up someone at Horseshoe Bend, they've already paid the fee.
Correct.
If you're empty, obviously there's no charge.
Correct.
If you're a cab and you go in and there's no passengers in your car, then you go pick up your they've already paid if they are there.
Right.
Now,
I have no problem with that.
if you have 4 people in your car you're taking off,
They
to
pay.
drop off and you pick up 4 more people, well then, it's the same thing.
Mhm.
So I don't know why we can't.
Yeah, we run this like we do the buses. If they come back with their receipt that they paid, because we have drivers in town who are undocumented. They running shuttles out of their vans, what have you, and then they come back and we don't know. I don't know how, this is an issue that we have. We don't know how to discern who, like you usually have the writing on the side, but how do we discern these other individuals? Because a lot of times they'll come back and they have more people in the car and they'll say, no, these guys aren't stopping here. We're just picking up people because we're all taking everybody over to Antelope. And I say, I'm sorry, but I can't monitor who gets in and out of your car. So there's people in your car, so I do have to charge you. So if we had some sort of a drop-off where they paid per entry, yes, people, like this gentleman and anybody else in town who is shuttling or just dropping someone off, is just basically being used then as a transport system, and the people are paying individually to come in.
Commercial operator that hauls passengers by law has to have a DOT number on the door.
Yeah, we're aware of that.
Right. So if you have a van that's empty except the driver with a DOT number, then I would assume that, go get your passengers. But if they've got 3 people in there, I'm sorry, you're hauling new people in, they got to pay.
Yeah,
And
but
if-
we hear it all the time. Well, they're not getting out. We're just
Right.
picking some up. So those are the issues where if we had, say, a roundabout where they could drop and there's anybody who's going through, we could charge, that would be perfect. But right now, I don't have the manpower or the ability to know once they go through there who's getting in and out of a vehicle.
But for this point, drivers that are identified that say like buggy taxi on the side, that do have nobody in their vehicle, for those type of people, would you be able just to let them to go through?
Yeah, they bring their receipt back. Just all we can do is like with the buses, because we also have people in town who we see come in and they park and we watch them go up with their guests. So now,
I know they bring their receipt back, but another issue that he said is,
My driver, and we're getting more and more every day, to keep track of 3 and 4 and 5 different groups and their receipts, it's
Wait.
not feasible.
when you come back, we can definitely work something out.
or if they're just picking them up and they didn't drop them off, they don't have a receipt for them, so how
Yeah,
are you getting them
I
paid
have
to go
people
through?
call from there to come and pick them up.
See, again, I think that the idea is if you have an empty car or a van that's obviously signed as a tour vehicle, the assumption is that whoever they're going for is already paid. And so to require them to show a receipt or require them otherwise, it seems like you just facilitate that by saying, yeah, go get your people in. Now, if you've got people in the car, they have to pay.
Right.
Right, and this individual fee will help you do that.
Right, but every person that comes through, we have a car counter. So every person that comes through, we still have to do a $0 ticket. So that I know that my girl, if at the end of the day, somebody says, I just rang up 100, But I look at at the car counter and it says 115, I'm gonna say, well, what happened with these 15? It's a checks and balance we have in place. So I can't just push them through, we do need to stop and say, okay, So that's one of the checks and balances that we have in place now that, if we had a drop off, we wouldn't need that because again, these people, so there's a whole bunch of elements that are in play that, yes, could make my life and my girl's life really easy. If we had, going back to the original topic here, which is the $5 per person.
I don't know that that's going to solve that problem, though, because if you've got a taxi that's coming in to pick somebody up, they're not going to want to pay the individual fee to get in.
Right, but if you had some sort of a turnaround or something where you
I
had a
see.
drop-off
Yeah.
point where just the people going through and could come in and out, do you know what I'm saying?
That's probably years down the road, though, before we could get to that. That would have to be designed into phase 3.
I think that rather than, making decisions based on 10% of the exception instead of 90% of the rule should be looked upon here. And yes, you may have a violation. Yes, you may have a breakthrough. But the bottom line is our commercial operators are getting calls to pick up people. We should let them in. Now, you may suspect that a person in a booth is perhaps taking advantage of that or whatever. That's why you've got cameras. That's why you've got other means to deal with
That's
that.
correct.
It's like any other cashier in any other company. You've got to, but having a rigid system that requires a cab driver to have, 20 receipts in his,
Well,
it just seems
but
unreasonable.
But the process is he's got 3 cabs. Which one dropped them off in the first place?
Exactly.
Well, it doesn't
matter.
that's the point I'm trying to make.
It's empty.
Rick.
Who
It doesn't
cares?
matter. If it's empty, it doesn't
know.
matter.
I
Go
agree.
in.
So here's a few questions. Number one, why? Because with the concept of Horseshoe Bend's parking lot and the fee booths is it's a parking fee. Why are we charging for those who are not parking? Number one. Okay. Number two, for like buggy taxi, why don't we put through an application system where the public transportation businesses can apply to the city for a sticker that they put on their windows? They say, this is how many are in our fleet. These are the license plate numbers. They put a sticker on their windshield, and since they're not parking, they're dropping off or picking up, they go through. We're not charging them because they're technically a walk-in.
You're still using my parking lot to profit your business. Every single one of those people is still using my bathrooms. Every one of those people is still using the trash. My bill this year will be $500,000 for sanitation.
And you won't make as much money.
All I'm saying is that if one of the taxi services come up and they come through and they don't have anybody in their vehicle, it shouldn't be an issue just to send them through without having a ticket.
Yeah, and all I'm doing is following the original guidelines that you guys set. So you guys can tell me how you guys would like to handle it. I'm more than happy. I mean, I think what's happening, it's been 2 weeks, like our city manager Celaya said, we have growing pains. We have new situations thrown at us every day. The one reason, I will be honest, I do not want locals to be free is because if people are getting in your car to go there, and all you have to do is flash that you're a Page citizen and you are logging people there all day long, we can't be doing that. We have no proof, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's the same thing we're going through with the fee schedule. How do we prove who is in the city, who's not in the city? Right now, we have no problem, really, to give that $10, okay? It's really no problem. People are like so excited to see the Bend. They're so excited to utilize our facilities. I don't see a whole big issue in that. Now, in regards to this, yes, we can start working with him. I only started getting this information about him, say, a couple days ago. So slowly, all of these problems are coming to light, and we're dealing with them because we do want to work with them, and we do want people here. But on the same token, the people that still come through, I think should still, if they're still coming through the cars, they're still using the facility. They're still using our parking lot to drop off people. I can't tell if, we have van drivers that come through all the time. All they're doing is dropping people off, but I don't look to see half of them park and wait for the people to come down. So what's the difference? How do I know when they're coming to just drop someone off or when they're coming to stay. I don't ha-
If they're empty, they go in free. If they, people in the car, they pay, whether they're getting on or not.
Yeah, that's what I would advocate. The other thing is, Lynn, I think that perhaps you could, once you,
I don't want to, sorry to cut you off, I don't want to get into operations. We have
no,
a-
I don't
we
want
have
to
a
tell her
vote.
how to make the watch. I just want to make a comment. That perhaps there should be a consistent place for these people to drop and pick all the time, that it's consistently the same. Because you can't have, oh, I'll drop you here, but I got to go find you. There should be a designated spot, that's all.
Perfect.
We have a motion and a second for, to start a $5 fee and start the process.
Yeah, we have to do a report with that. So we'll have to work, I guess we can work with whomever to put that together and then bring it back to the May 8th meeting for publication. We have to have some data that supports that, but it shouldn't be an issue.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
One nay?
Thank you, council.
Before we move off of this, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to begin developing an ordinance that would prohibit the make unlawful a drop at Horseshoe Bend in other than a fee booth area or designated area. Something to that language to give staff the direction, let's get moving on the solution.
I second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
The motion is to draft an ordinance that prohibits dropping off without passing through a fee booth. In a nutshell, I think. Is that accurate?
Yes.
I just had a question on that really quick. That is the highway and it's ADOT. Are we able to
It's still within the city limits.
Yeah, I mean, if they're stopping on the highway, that's a different ticket that we issue. If they're trying to stop in the middle of the highway and drop off people, that's already a law. We can already cite them. But what we can't do is if they pull into our queue lane and stop there and drop people off, that's what this would prohibit.
Okay.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Any further discussion on fees? Okay, we're going to move on to new business 13.2. Discussion possible action pertaining to a license agreement with Lake Powell Adventure Company and construction of bike trails. I'll turn this over to our city attorney.
Thank you. And we do have Craig Little here in the audience with us if you have questions as we go through this. He's kind of been an integral part of setting this up, and he's a representative from Lake Powell Adventure Company. And they have presented all of this information, by the way, to the Parks and Recreation Board as well, and it was met with unanimous approval and support, I think, from the Parks and Recreation Board of what they're trying to do. So Lake Powell Adventure Company, they are a local startup business that engages in offering tours around the city and out at the lake and in other areas. One of the tours that they offer is an e-bike. It's a mountain bike, and they offer a tour to go and ride these bikes. And one of the things that Craig has indicated is that we already have a great asset in the rim trail, but there is some concern, that it gets used, and he doesn't want to be, having conflicts with other people using that when they're doing tours and clogging up our trail, the rim trail. So he'd like some other options to do tours around the city. And so, he was open with the city and came and said, I'd like to conduct tours on city property. I'd like to know what I need to do to get permission to do that. And one of the things that he's offered to the city that they would like to do is to construct some new trails that would be open to the public, but would be on city property. And so primarily, the area that you see on the screen there, this is over across the street. You can see from the industrial park, and to the east of the industrial park. There's a mesa over there, and what they're proposing, what they would like to do is have a trail system that is a loop trail, as you can see, kind of an orangish color there, across the top of that mesa, and then they'd like to develop and maybe mark some trails on slick rock areas that would be designated for different skill levels. And what they've offered is that they would work without any city investment, really, that they would work to establish these trails, to mark them, and then to cut in the trails. They would potentially pair up with 4R City or other volunteer groups to assist them in constructing these trails. And then they would use it for their tour business, and it would be also open to the public. You can see there's a yellow and black dotted line on there. That's the old N20. And so right off of N20 there, we actually have a gate, and there's a dirt road that goes up and accesses this mesa. Right now it's blocked off with some boulders to stop vehicles from driving up there. But I walked that with Kyle and Cliff last week, and what Kyle and Cliff have indicated is that that's still a good road. It basically just needs a blade run across the top of it. We could open up, we already have an access off of N20 down there. Open that up, and then there's a flat spot right as you get up on top of the mesa that they could put some boulders and kind of delineate a parking area for people to access that, and instead of having to ride their bike or walk down a road with no bike lane or sidewalk. So what Craig is asking for is permission. What I'm suggesting is the way that we do that is through a license agreement that you have in your packets that does two things primarily. First, it provides formal permission for Lake Powell Adventure Company to conduct tours on city property. Part of the requirements of that is that they would have to have insurance, carry insurance and name the city as an additional insured, indemnify us. They already have that insurance. They've provided that to us. So they're ready to go. The next thing that it does is it permits them, with permission from council, to construct trails as council sees fit. And this being the first trail that they'd like to construct, they'd also like permission eventually, or sooner rather than later, to do some small connector trails along the rim trail out by the airport, to do a kind of a shorter tour there if people didn't want to go all the way out here, and this may be a little bit more difficult, but if they wanted a short tour, get out and kind of see the lake, that there would be some connector trails that would go and ride a little bit on the rim trail, and then you kind of come off the rim trail. And they were going to map that and bring that to the city for approval. But they under the terms of the license agreement, they can't build any trails without prior permission from city council. So they wouldn't just be building wherever. And ultimately, they'd like to see this potentially developed into more of a kind of a mountain bike park down the road, with some other features, pump tracks and other things built in. That's kind of probably down the road. Tonight, they're primarily just looking for permission to start construction on this trail. I think they're ready to go as soon as we give them permission.
I think that would be great for the city. I just had a question, if maybe not in this area right away, but what happens if somebody wants to build on one of their connecting trails?
So we would obviously want them to go, whoever would do that, we would want them to go through the same process and come through the front door like Lake Powell Adventure Company has. You know, it's always going to be an issue of enforcement. There may be people putting in trails that we don't know about. They're already doing that to a certain extent with ATVs and other things. But if another company wanted to come in and say, hey, we want to build a trail.
I'm sorry, I was thinking more like, because he wanted connecting trails from the rim to make things shorter.
Yeah.
But what if, like, at some point in time, like a condo wants to be put in on one of those connecting properties?
I mean, we could sell the land, and it's just, I mean, they don't have any ownership. It's still on city property. It's not a lease. It doesn't necessarily give them the right to, we're not promising that this trail will exist forever. We're just giving them permission to use it while it's there, but we can always sell the land later if we need.
Yeah, I think it'd be great for the tourists and for the people of the city, because I know a lot of people love mountain biking, and right now we only have the one trail option.
I move to approve the license agreement with Lake Powell Adventure Company and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Second.
Can I,
Motion and a second, discussion?
yeah, I have a couple little things. One thing comes to mind is, you know, this is kind of on the edge of town. And by the way, I'm fully supportive of the concept and the idea. The only concern I would have is if we have an incident, how public safety could find these individuals, specifically fire, is what I'm thinking. I'm wondering if, you know, we should have mile markers made on these trails to say we're at mile marker 7. Fire would go out there and walk this trail, ride this trail where they know where mile marker 7 is. So just put that in your database where they can get right to it. That would be my only request, would be to have some signage made. Maybe the city needs to consider being part of that process.
I do have a question. I too am very, very much for this. But I also know how popular mountain biking is, not only with our locals, but with our tourists. How many vehicles can that proposed parking lot hold, or is it going to end up being a horseshoe bend scenario again?
There's quite a lot of space up there on top of this mesa.
Okay.
I think, you know, we just kind of went up there and looked at it. I don't know, Kyle, but I mean, literally, it's just a giant mesa up there that's already pretty flat, and I think it could accommodate quite a few cars.
I want to bring it up, but that's where the giraffes were, and there's plenty of parking up there.
Yeah. Giraffe Mesa is what I
There's
hear.
already roads up there.
And before those no trespassing signs got put up, that was a big party area. There were a lot of parties up there.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's the reality of, you know, when we open that up, you open it up for people to do things that they shouldn't be doing, and hopefully, you know, we don't create a burden for law enforcement. But again, Lake Powell Adventure Company they've offered to volunteer to clean up some of the old remnants of partying that went on up there and those types of things. Obviously, they want to run a business up there and make it nice for them and for the community, for their customers and for the community. So, staff and the Parks and Recreation Board are all very much in favor of this proposal.
That's fair.
Just to clarify what the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board is in favor of, the recommendation that we forwarded was to establish Page Regional Mountain Bike Park. And with phase 1 being the development of this trail and others, we did not discuss any trails by the airport. We have not seen or discussed any connecting trails to the Page Rim Trail. And we also have the same concerns about parking. Because of the popularity of the mountain bike profession and our location between Moab and Springdale, we had concerns that we would create an instant horseshoe bend problem real quickly because of the connectivity of all of the users of mountain biking throughout this area. So it will be instantly popular as soon as it's created. So we advocated having a vision first and establishing kind of what we want to see at the end. And then this phase 1 that we recommended was this trail, parking, closure to unauthorized vehicle access, and I can't remember what else you had on there, Craig. So very supportive of this, not just as a recreational facility for our citizens, but as an economic development opportunity for the city. I just want to clarify, we did not discuss a license agreement or this particular approach.
Thank you.
That's all we're approving tonight is what's
Motion and a
right here.
second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
I move to approve the proposal to construct trails and allow Lake Powell Adventure Company to build the trails as presented.
Second.
Motion and second.
And just to clarify, since we don't have a map or any detail of around the rim trail and connector trails, the
This
as
is just-
presented is just the mesa out there tonight, and then we'll work with Craig to get the maps and things so we can bring that back to council before you pull the trigger. You're not approving any rim trail changes.
Yeah,
tonight.
it's just as presented.
Just out there, yeah.
Do we have a second? We have a second. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We're moving on to bid awards. Discussion and possible action pertaining to the bid award for airport HVAC unit. Kyle, you get some water?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Tappan and members of the Page City Council. What you have before you is a recommendation for the installation of one and possibly two 10-ton HVAC units at the airport terminal. So I'll give you a little background. For the last several years, the two units that are on that roof, I'd like to consider them failing. We've spent a lot of time and money in contract services to maintain those units, especially at the airport terminal. We're seeing an increase of tourism there, and frequently we go over in the units, one or both of the main units in the terminal there are malfunctioned, and the terminal is considerably warm. We're talking 76, 78, and 80 degrees at times. So what we did is we put together a proposal, a scope of services. We published that as required by the procurement codes. We had a bid opening. We had two bids. One bid was from Lake Powell Refrigeration. The other bid was from Atcher Service Companies located in Phoenix. And as you're aware, the Lake Powell Refrigeration is local here to Page. We reviewed those bids, and we're pleased to see how low that Lake Powell Refrigeration had offered to perform that service. We anticipated somewhere between $25,000 and $35,000 for that unit. His initial bid came in considerably lower, and at that time, we decided to push forward and replace both bids. So I have two motions for you there. One is for the original bid for $20,157.50. The other is a change order after that, if that bid is approved, for an additional unit at $17,133.88. Lake Powell Construction, or Lake Powell Refrigeration, said if we went with the second bid, they'd take 15% off. So that's why you see a sizable difference rather than a doubling of that unit. So, any questions?
That's off to the local guys.
I had a feeling you'd like that.
I do have a comment, though, on your bid schedule. That seems to be lacking. Your requirement for license only leads to a TPT license. There's no requirement in your bid that I could find for this is a CR39 contractor's license. And I think going forward, it's law that you have to have a licensed contractor working on public property.
Yes.
So I think going forward, we need to make sure that we have the appropriate license requirement in there and that they provide documentation that they are licensed. Like Powell Refrigeration is licensed.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, we will include that. We vet all these scopes with our legal department, and we'll make that adjustment on our future ones. Yes, absolutely.
I move we award the airport HVAC unit bid to Lake Powell Refrigeration of Page, Arizona in the amount of $20,157.50 and authorize the mayor to sign the contract.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
I'll move to approve a change order to include a second HVAC unit at the Page Municipal Airport Terminal in the amount of $17,133.88.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving on to 15 departments, 15.1, discussion possible action pertaining to outfitting a new patrol vehicle for the Page Police Department.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, this is just a request to use some of our capital funds to upfit the new police unit that we're getting very close to receiving. This portion of it is just the upfitting of police equipment in there. That's light bars, police radios, all that goes into that. We did get 3 bids. Unfortunately, there's a company in Utah and Salt Lake City area that we came in about $1,600 cheaper than we could get it from down in the Phoenix area. It worked out pretty good because they can get it done by the end of the fiscal year, and they will deliver it to us for about $250. We can't even send somebody up there that cheap to get it. So that is our request. The amount is $19,318.97.
Move to approve the use of Premier vehicle installation for outfitting a new patrol unit for the Page Police Department and use capital funds.
Second.
Do you want to put that, do we want that amount in there?
For the amount of $19,318.97.
Second.
Before we vote on this is in the budget, right?
Yes, it's already been in the budget. It's already been approved. I think the actual budget
Shame
amount's a
on me,
little
right?
higher than this.
It was part of the vehicle expense itself.
Okay, thanks.
But with this, we're
Only
coming in
spent
just
for
a
the
little.
vehicle, now there's
Yeah.
the upfitting.
Okay.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for saving
Thank
us
you.
money, Chief. 15.2, discussion, possible action pertaining to purchase of radio equipment for the Page Fire Department.
Good evening, Mayor Tappan and members of the council. Staff is requesting funds to upgrade Channel 1 of our communication system. This upgrade is needed to keep us up with advancing technology and maintain a functional public safety radio system. The current system we're using was built back in 2005 and is becoming less reliable and no longer supported by the manufacturer. This system upgrade that we're talking about is a multi-year project that was started last year, and if approved in the upcoming budget, should be completed in the 2020 budget. You're requesting funds to purchase 1 transceiver, 5 mobile, and 11 portable radios. The amount requested is a budgeted item, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I feel like we bought radios. Is that that was the earlier purchase?
Actually, that was last year. We did, and that's kind of why I wanted to bring that point up, that it is a multi-year. So we have 2 completely separate channels, and they cover the entire city, and the fire department has some that actually go out of the city as well. Last year, we upgraded the Channel 2 of fire and partnered with PD on that one as well. So now we're working on our primary channel, which is Channel 1.
Move to approve the purchase of 1 repeater, 11 portable radios with Haslock batteries and 5 mobile radio units that are compatible with the digital radio system in the amount of $31,959.24.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
15.3, discussion and possible action pertaining to a used sweeper for the Public Works Department.
Good evening once again, Mayor Tappan, members of the Page City Council. For the last 2 years, the City of Page Central Garage has spent considerable effort in repairing a 1973 Roscoe side casting tube room. This room was purchased new by the Bureau and has been kept over as a piece of equipment for the city. The side room is been utilized in citywide projects assisting the street sweeping for crack sealing, pothole patching, general cleaning streets without gutters or curbs. It's ideal for doing shouldering down areas like Hall Road, out of the end of N20 that we maintain, and all through the industrial area. Page Public Works has been searching several avenues regarding repair of the motor, because we've had some problems with the motor that runs the equipment. And the cost of repairing the motor is not terribly bad. It's about $3,000 to $4,000. The issue is the hydraulic pump that serves that. Parts are no longer available for this old piece of equipment. So the Public Works Department has identified a used piece of equipment, relatively new in age. It's again, we identified it with United Rentals. We have looked at other avenues, and so we're out asking for consideration of purchasing this. It's not something that was initially scheduled to be purchased this year in the fiscal budget. However, we did have considerable cost savings from our dump truck purchase in the capital equipment. We have an excess, if you will, of $33,000, $33,598 left that we could spend in there with your approval. And so we've searched high and low, and we came across this side casting broom for the amount of $27,737.50 delivered to Page through United Rental. You have additional information there in the attachments showing comparable equipment that we've looked at. You also have the United Rental quote. So at this time, I'm open to any questions you may have.
I have a general question. What is the average lifespan of these?
It really depends on how much usage you use on equipment and how much maintenance and care you take into your equipment. We are fortunate that we have mechanics who are able to keep equipment for a long period of time here in Page. However, that does reach kind of a maximum life. This piece of equipment's 43 years old. Now, the tube broom itself is interchangeable. The motor, we could put a new motor in, but finding hydraulic parts and pieces for this unit is not feasible at this time. So we'd be looking at some, major upgrades, and we estimate probably around $9,000 to $10,000 to get this piece of equipment back up and running efficiently. And that's just to correct the problems that we're seeing now. There could be future problems with other linkage and other.
So in your best expert opinion, since you work with these more often than we do, this piece of equipment, even though it is used, could we potentially get another 10 years or more out of it?
Absolutely. We have all the maintenance records that United Rental has provided us on that equipment, showing us the usage and hours, maintenance schedule, oil changes, that sort of thing. And like I said, we've got a great central garage that can keep stuff alive that we should have let go decades ago, perhaps, but we do it because that's what we have.
Okay. I move to approve the purchase of a used 2013 Brock KR 350 closed cab 8-foot sweeper in the amount of $27,737.50 from United Rentals.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? I think this is a great inventory to keep our new streets clean. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Kyle. The last thing on our agenda is executive session. 38-431.034 and 7. Discussion and possible action on Horseshoe Bend.
Let's go into executive session.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.